The relationship between these two is one of the shining stars of Adventure Time. Now, even by the standards of this admittedly weird show, the pairing of these two feels a little strange at first. One is an immortal princess, the other is a vampire who isn't quite immortal but nonetheless has a long life expectancy. One is refined and prim and proper and elegant, the other is a bit of an uncouth slob. But the relationship between them is beautiful, having a history long before the events of Adventure Time. And it finally resolves into peace and domestic tranquility. Marceline spends a lot of time alone. She always has. She's pushed a lot of people away because she doesn't want others to become too close to her and then lose them. But because of this fear and anxiety, she only ends up pushing more people away and furthering her isolation. Because Adventure Time is a relatively old show, at least by the standards of this new golden age of animation, the creators couldn't be quite as explicit with the relationship between these two as they might want to have been, especially early on. Still, it became clear pretty early on to anyone who didn't have their head in the sand that they had a messy romantic relationship in the past. That it came and brought some good moments, but also a lot of tension and heartbreak, and finally the relationship broke apart. Think about the great early song I'm Just Your Problem, written by a very young Rebecca Sugar, still a few years away from making Steven Universe. Like most of Rebecca Sugar's best songs, it's catchy and tuneful, but it's also very poignant. It is clear why the relationship wasn't working in the past. Princess Bubblegum is royalty. She's used to being treated a very specific way. She's used to living a very specific lifestyle, with all the pomp and circumstance and luxury you'd expect. Then the wild, chaotic Marceline comes along and disrupts that. Marceline doesn't want to change who she is at her heart. She wants to love Bubblegum. She wants to have this relationship. But on the other hand, she also doesn't want to lose her identity. She wants to still have that wild, crazy side of herself. She doesn't want that to be snuffed out. It doesn't help that, as the show later reveals, Bubblegum was dragged down by her duties. She couldn't spend as much time with Marceline and with this relationship as she might have wanted to. Too much came between them, her kingdom and her people and all her responsibilities as a royal. All these kind of formed a blockage between the two lovers. I have to say, I rather like how utterly mundane this is. There's no infidelity, no big blow-up, no catastrophic fight, no huge destructive event as far as we're aware. They just gradually grew apart because of their different lives, and over time the rift between them became so prevalent that they began to feel that it couldn't be patched together. The relationship couldn't be healed. It was that far gone by that point. They were in two separate bubbles, living two separate lives. Too much had happened since the start of their relationship. For most of Adventure Time proper, they refer to each other as friends, and this is pretty accurate. You could say it is partly because a lot of the mores and restrictions of the day couldn't allow this relationship to be more explicitly depicted, and that's true, but that's not the whole story. They are friends, whatever else they are. They care about each other, and they want to help each other out, even if the romantic relationship between them didn't quite work. I mean, what else are they supposed to call each other? How else are they supposed to think of each other? As exes? No, that term doesn't fit. It's too antagonistic. They're still in each other's lives. They still have feelings for each other. They still like each other and care about each other a lot. They're just not in a romantic relationship, and well, that happens. I personally know a lot of people like that. They try to make the romance work between them, but it just doesn't for whatever reason. But the feelings are still there, and they don't hate each other. So the relationship between them just kind of turns into a close friendship. Now, is it the optimal scenario? No, of course not. But it is quite realistic, and I commend it for that. As utterly weird as this show can be, it does a pretty good job at handling the relationships between its characters with poise and grace and maturity. Thankfully for us, though, and for the characters, they find the strength within themselves to go and try again, and try and make it work. And they do. They succeed. The truth is that Marceline loves Bubblegum's empathy and her thoughtfulness on all things. That Bubblegum plans everything ahead of time and tries in all circumstances to maintain some vestige of proper decorum, as befits a ruler, is actually good for Marceline as a person, and she realizes that. I wouldn't quite say that opposites attract, and even in the cases when they do attract, it doesn't necessarily lead to a long-lasting relationship, but it is also not true that for a long-lasting relationship to work, the partners have to be completely similar in every possible way. People with opposite personalities can grow together and learn from each other without sacrificing their individuality and their individual lives. And this is exactly what happens to Bubblegum and Marceline. Bubblegum, over the course of Adventure Time, becomes a bit humbler. The craziness of the world exhausts her, it depletes her emotional reserves, and she starts to realize that there are some things in this world you just can't control. Now, that doesn't of course mean that you have to give yourself up to the chaos, but it does mean recognizing that there is only so much one person by themselves can do. And when she comes to these realizations, she starts to better understand where Marceline is coming from and what Marceline has gone through. Now, as for Marceline, she finds in Bubblegum the stability that she's been missing in her life. She's anxious and she's self-conscious and she doesn't always know what to say, and she always feels pressured and like an outsider because when people see her, they just see a vampire, whatever image they have in their minds of a vampire, and they react accordingly. But Bubblegum doesn't care about any of that. She loves Marceline, and Marceline knows that for sure. It's one of the few things she does know for sure. When she's with Bubblegum, she can better process life, and she doesn't feel quite so alone and quite so isolated. True, she is quite anxious about the relationship between them, considering that Marceline, despite her long lifespan, is amoral, while Bubblegum is immortal, not immortal. But the stability Bubblegum provides Marceline prevents Marceline from freaking out too much about that. It keeps Marceline focused on what's ahead of her, which is a much healthier attitude to have. When she's with Bubblegum, she's able to find peace. When she's with Bubblegum, she's able to calm the chaos of her heart and think about things more clearly. As the series approaches its finale, they're able to move beyond their own personal egos. They're able to grow. The relationship works. It becomes sweet and tender. This doesn't mean they don't have disagreements. They of course do. But they grow to think more about each other, and in that thinking and that empathy, they grow to care more about each other and care more about the relationship between them. Marceline learns a lot throughout the course of Adventure Time in terms of just how lonely and cold and admittedly scary at times the world can be, no matter who you are. There are some fears that are just always there. They don't go away, no matter what kind of powers you have, or no matter how strong or knowledgeable you might be. A lot of her worst fears about the world turn out to be correct. The world can indeed swallow you up whole if you're not being careful. But Marceline knows also that there's an antidote for that. An antidote for that isolation and loneliness. And that antidote is, well, connection. Especially connection with the people you care about most in the world. So Marceline commits to Bubblegum. She takes care of her. She sings to her. And as a result, Marceline finally finds lasting happiness. So thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like and comment and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can and you want to see more videos like this. Keep watching Adventure Time. It's a lovely, eccentric little show. And if you have any relationships that you want to see me talk about, just post them in the comments. I'd be really delighted to know what y'all think and what y'all want to see next. So anyway, tune in soon for my next analysis. It will be coming soon. That I can promise you. Thank y'all again. Adios, comrades.